Well then guys, what a start to the session. I'm just here, literally about 2 hours. Only had the rods out 15 minutes at the most, and the middle rod has absolutely ramped off. With the sign-in book looking over the last couple of weeks and months, it's just been trout after trout. So I wasn't expecting too much. I literally thought I'd come here for a night and then move off somewhere in the morning, but I've been rewarded with that common, 16 pound 4 ounces. So best fish that I've had so far in 2020, and I'm hoping that it'll not be the last of this session as well. It's been really good because obviously we've had the Storm Kira, Storm Dennis, all the storms that have been coming through. Weather's been primed for it. Temperature about 7 degrees here. Northeasterly wind, so not the best wind, quite a cold wind in fact, but that wee bit of sunshine this morning for about an hour, about between 11 and half 12, just brought the temperatures up in the bay where I put a rig, about 10 foot of water, and it's absolutely ramped off. I'll show you later in the session what I'm using in terms of rigs and baits. Pretty much the same old with a few wee tweaks and changes. The mix that I'm putting out is very, very different than usual as well. And that's been going in a small mesh PVA bag. So the rig's back on the spot, and I've only put it out literally 2 minutes ago since having that fish. So fingers crossed there might be something else, but hopefully it's going to be a good session anyway. But as it progresses, I'll keep you posted on how things are going. But a brilliant start to the session, nailing one early doors. Fantastic. Well folks, the session's only started. The rod's only been out in the water about 15 minutes, and this lovely common is ramped off, 16 pound 4 ounces. Didn't really put up much of an account for itself until it got into close quarters, and then it did a good bit of fighting under the rod tip. But a great start to February, first fish of February, biggest fish of the year so far. So let's get him slipped back, and hopefully something else will come over the next couple of days. Happy days. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I knew it wouldn't take long. The first trout of the evening. I was just starting to relax in the bivvy, and the rods went off. Nothing really to report during the night. Couple more trout after the one that was photographed for the video. I couldn't be bothered. I just unhooked the rest in the net and sent them packing. Rods are back out this morning just before 8 o'clock. As it started to get a bit brighter, I made sure the rods were back on the spots, specifically that middle rod that did the 16 pound 4 common yesterday. The other two I've sort of backed into slightly deeper water, not much, about a foot more, just to see as it shelves off if that's where the fish are sitting. We'll see how that sort of reacts this morning. Literally, just as I was coming to do a piece for the camera, the right-hand rod rocketed off, peeling line, and it turned out to be a brown trout of about 5 pounds. So I've just sharpened the hook up and put that back. That's the issue with this place. It is well known for a lot of big brownies, and sometimes when they take your hook bait, they can do significant damage to the hook point. When I was using the Kamakura hooks a few months back, it was a hook a chuck because you couldn't resharpen those hooks, and they just turned the point over with them being so surgically sharp. But I'll keep you posted if the morning brings anything else, and a few minutes time I'll show you the bait approach that I'm using on this trip. Well, good evening everyone. You joined me on the Tuesday night. I've been here last night. As you know, no action really through the night, except those couple of trout. Well, I say a couple of trout. I've had 11 from the night through to this morning. So I've rested the swim for around about 2 hours, ran and got some supplies, and I'm now back to get the rods out for the evening. I've made up very, very little bait, so I'm just about to prepare a bit more to go into this evening. Whether I use it or whether I don't, it doesn't matter. I may stay on, I might move venue, I might just go home, I haven't decided. But for now, what I want to do is spend a few minutes and show you the bait prep that I've used on this session. So I've been using the Winter Abyss boilies from Horizon 12mm dumbbells. First thing I've done is take a tiny handful and put them in whole. After that, I have crumbed some boilie down using my crusher. Now, I must admit, the crusher has been an absolute godsend on this session. This is the ProLogic one, which actually has metal teeth, unlike the Corda one, which uses plastic. If you're using halibut pellets and things like that and you're crumbing them down, something with the metal teeth is far, far better. But I'm crumbing down probably 2 to 3 handfuls of boilie. And as I say, these are nice and soft baits. If you're using the boilies on your hair, my suggestion would be you grab yourself a handful for the session and air dry them. That way they're less susceptible to break down in the water. They are a softer bait, and over the period of time they can sort of be sucked off the hair because they do break down a bit, which is part of the winter sort of soluble in these baits. So personally, if it was me, I would be taking a handful of these and air drying them for my hook baits. Makes them that bit harder as well, but that's just one tip. So we've got a crumb boilie and our whole boilie in the mix. I have some hemp and snails, and I'm just putting literally a handful or 2 of that in. Give it a slight mix about, and then lastly I've got some mixed maggot and castor. More castor than maggot, if I'm honest, but just put a bit of that in. Now, that is probably not help with the amount of trout takes, but again, it was the mix that I made up, and it did bag that carp yesterday. Crumb the boilie, put in some whole boilie, get a bit of hemp, put that in, and then again the castor and maggot approach, and I'll show you what the finished article looks like. But that is the finished mix. So let's get it put into a PVA bag and out onto the spot. Well, evening all. You join me on Wednesday night. Nothing to report really during the day. I think the count now is 18 trout and still that 1 carp. Luckily, the rigs have been out there probably about an hour and a half, and I've had no bother as of yet from my old friend the trout. So hopefully there'll be something during the night. It's not as cold as it has been. As you can see, maybe from around the bivvy, I'm not sure if you can see. I've no skull cap or no overwrap on this tracker bivvy, and I'm suffering the dreaded condensation. So it's not as comfortable as things could be, but it's alright. I tell you what, the rats must have had a good feed last night anyway, because they've burrowed the whole way into the bait bucket, and I didn't even realise. So that's not good. Well folks, a pretty motionless night. Couple of small dropbacks. I redid the rods after those, because sometimes when the trout lift it, they absolutely annihilate the hook point, so I just wanted to be sure, but nothing at all. Very, very quiet, other than my old friend Roland the rat, as you've seen, eat his way through the bucket. So what I plan to do is, I'm not actually sure. I thought I was going to go this morning and do one more night on my club water, but it's got better weather here. It's kind of similar to when I got that run on the Monday. So what I might do is stick the rods back out and see if I can nab something within a few hours, and then maybe just call it a day. I think is the best way. I'm thinking just for this last bit, I'm sick of tying PVA bags in this weather. I'm soaking the bivvy in the inside, the condensation is there. I'm just a bit fed up, so I'm thinking stick the boat out with the rigs for one last sort of hurrah, and hope it brings something on. And as I say that, the heavens have just reopened. This is the first time I've been able to get outside without a bit of rain to do some video editing. And the second you switch the camera on, the heavens open. But it's not deterred me. I mean, having that fish within about sort of 15 minutes of casting out gave me so much confidence for the session. It hasn't paid off later. You know, I haven't had anything else. However, it has gave me a bit of ideas about a bit of winter form on this water. It's the first time I've had a fish so early in the year. You want to put it that way. Usually April would be the first sort of time I'd get a bit of action from here. So I can't say any better than that. It has been a cracking session. I am going to put the boat out for a bit, but I'm going to get these rods out now before I get absolutely soaked again. I don't know how well you can see this, but when I send the boat out usually, I keep the rod in my right hand. As you can see, I've got my finger across the line there, as if I was feathering the line on a cast. And what I do is to make sure that that line stays super straight on the spot that I'm going to, rather than a big bow of line, especially if it's windy when you're sending the boat out. That just keeps it true. I learned that the hard way from actually losing fish and losing runs. And I'm just controlling my boat simply with the left hand. Tend to find as well, if you break the surface of the water with a line, it helps it sink quicker as well. Feeling the lead go down there again and sort of counting. I think I've dropped in between sort of 8 to 10 foot of water, which is really what I was looking for. So I'm simply putting the rod back on the rest here, letting the line sink naturally under its own weight. Some of the session when I had that fish, I wasn't backleaded, and then I sort of thought for during the night, it just made it easier to stick a backlead on the rod. But literally at this point, it's letting the line sink under its own weight. I'll then lift the backlead out and do it that way. With the water levels being down a bit as well, I've had to get right down on my belly there to lift the boat from the water, which sometimes at this time of year the water levels are up a bit, but there's a good outflow at the minute from the hydro dam and the actual dam there for the water to go out. That's knocked me out of breath. Another issue really on this session has been this platform has been relentlessly slippy. I think it was Tuesday night. It had a bit of ice across it, so I was absolutely freaked out about coming out for a run. What I ended up doing was sacrificing a pair of socks that I have there that have like rubber grips on the bottom of them, and I was using those to come out, because even in the boots and stuff, it was just absolutely treacherous, really. And again, landing that fish, lifting the net over it, and the slime off the fish, and the residue of the water of the fish made the platform inherently very slippy as well. So it's about doing everything nice and gentle, taking your time and being slow. I remember in one of the previous videos, I ended up kicking the pod into the water and falling in and literally grabbing on with my left arm. And that was the session I got bit by a horsefly and ended up with the sepsis infection as well. Had to be in and out of hospital. So I've come to learn when fishing these platforms, especially at this time of year, just take it easy. You know, there's no race. I'm fishing far away enough from the far bank at night on the rods that the fish can take a bit of line and I can take my time to get out. Plus the pod is locked down. I've got the jag lockdowns on the back. The rods aren't going too far. There you couldn't ride it, folks. Packing up and hailstones. Tiniest bit of hail. And it's been that absolutely lovely winter sun. Haven't decided what I'm doing. Possibly going home and relaxing. Might just get there, get washed, and head on to somewhere else for the night. We'll see how it goes. It's been a blank session here. I've enjoyed myself, but that's all from this session. And if I do a day session tomorrow or I go for tonight, sure, I will get a bit of vlogging done on that video as well. But thanks again for watching the video. If you haven't already, feel free to like and subscribe to the video. It always helps. And the comments are appreciated as well. Feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you've thought of the vlog anyway. Thanks again, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.